one sec.
Hi, I'm Ian Banyard, and I'm growing nature conscious communities, which doesn't sound like a proper job, but I've never had a proper job since 1999. Terry and I first met in 1998, and we were both. I sort of talk about we both realized we had this itch. If we didn't get off the train we were on, we were heading in the wrong direction in our lives. And it was very much about, I felt like I had to jump off it. We were talking about TV programs. Alas Smith and Jones was a favorite program of mine back in the early days. And these guys used to rob banks, but they were good guys, really, but they were kind of tricked into robbing banks and stuff. Anyway, they used to jump off trains all the time. And I just felt, I often say to people that, I grew up in nature. I grew up in Hucklecote. I was always on Chosen Hill playing as a kid. Chosen Hill was my playground and it was my sanctuary. When I wanted to escape, when I wanted to get away from life, sometimes I would just go off up the hill on my own. But often I was up there with friends playing. But I forgot all that. I went to school. I went to Crypt Grammar School. I used to look out at May Hill. I actually went to May Hill this week for the first time ever. But I used to look at May Hill from my classroom just in a daydream. I always talk about my school days, D-A-Z-E, rather than D-A-Y-S. I think I had a touch of attention deficit at school, often overwhelmed by information. Just used to daydream and look out the window, so I never caused any problems. So it was probably never recognized. I always say I was probably one of the first people I know to have had ADD. Um, but I actually went up there for the first time, and I went up onto May Hill and had a look around it, and it was just absolutely wonderful. And it just connected me back to how when I felt overwhelmed or when I felt uncomfortable as a child, nature was my sanctuary, and that's where I went to. And in 2000, when I was on the wrong train, I was heading in the wrong direction, I often say I'd climbed the corporate ladder, I'd left school, I'd say I went to Crip School, I did well at school. I joined the post office on the counter at King Square in Gloucester, and I travelled all around the county, going to all the different post offices and working there. I climbed the corporate ladder. I got into personnel. Went back to college, and I did my diploma in personnel management. That then I became a chartered member of the Institute of Personnel and Development, CIPD. Offered fellowship, but I never ever did that because at that point I'd climbed the corporate ladder, realized it was leaning against the wrong wall and fell off. I like to say I jumped off, but I didn't. I actually fell off and found myself in nature. Much to Terry's disappointment, because Terry was looking to open up a new business with he and I doing NLP, because we'd both been training with Paul McKenna and Richard Bandler in London. And he had these great ideas that we were going to do work together as trainers, running something called Skills for Life. Wasn't that right, Terry? And then he turned around and I was no longer there. I was in the Lake District, and I lived up there as a recluse for 10 years, felt like 10 years, 5 years. And I say I found myself there. I literally lost everything. I felt I'd lost everything. My parents both died in 2002, and then I really felt like I'd lost everything. I had a realization while I was wandering around lost in nature that the opposite of lose isn't always win. And I'd spent my life trying to win back what I'd lost in life. But I discovered in nature that the other opposite of win is, the other opposite of lose is find. So instead of trying to win back what I'd lost, you can't win back people you lose. You have to find something. You have to find, and what I found was my true nature. And what I found was I'd not been looking after my nature. I'd been living my life based on the expectations of other people and on the expectations of society. And I'd forgotten that actually I had a nature that was my first nature. And I was living my life based on second nature, on what I'd learned to be good at rather than what I was naturally good at. And it took me a long time after that, finding myself in nature. I came back to Cheltenham in 2006, reconnected with lots of people that I disconnected from. But more importantly, I reconnected to my nature. And one of the things I discovered was that there's great joy in finding your nature, but then there's a journey. And that journey took me from finding my nature to healing my nature, to understanding my nature, my true nature, and then finding the courage to release my true nature into a life that I'd run away from and try to escape from. So that journey for me was a kind of a Joseph Campbell journey of going on a journey, discovering something, and then coming back and trying to then share that. And so 2014, I was financially free for the first time in my life. I'd managed to get my life back together. I was remarried. My wife has got a corporate event management business. So I was financially secure for the first time ever in my life. I grew up on council estate in Hucklecote. It was a very hard time. But I was financially free, but I was financially free, yeah, but I wasn't feeling fulfilled. I had lots of skills, I had lots of ability, but it just wasn't I felt it was heading in the wrong direction again. I wasn't going the way I wanted to go. So my wife said, just get out of the house and go for a walk. I live in the countryside. I live above Charlton Kings, up on the Cotswold Escarpment. And I said, well, where do I go? And she said, well, just walk. Just go for a walk. And when you get to a pub, because you're bound to find a pub somewhere there, give me a call and I'll come and pick you up. So I went for a walk. And on that walk, I discovered something called natural mindfulness. I called it natural mindfulness. Natural because it's natural. It's something we all have. It's an ability to just be in a daze like I was at school, looking at May Hill, but also in that state of it's an altered state of consciousness where all of the layers seem to fall away. And anybody who's walked in nature for more than 20 minutes knows that after a while, you disconnect from the world of busy, the world of manufactured mindlessness, and you connect back to something much more natural, which I call natural mindfulness. Opposite of natural is man-made, manufactured, manipulated, artificial. The opposite of mindfulness is mindlessness. And so for me, natural mindfulness was a journey, and it was a journey back to my true nature. And having then found my true nature, I've spent years now healing it, still healing it, understanding it, and so I can release that back into the world. I created Nature Connection World. I created Cotswold Natural Mindfulness, all ways in which I could encourage people to come and walk mindfully in nature to connect with the natural world, but also connect with their nature and the nature in others too. So we could align ourselves much more to what we're naturally good at and naturally interested in, rather than try following a maybe an out of date now way of living that actually is causing a lot of unwellness and dis-ease in us. I often say that when we connect, we care. What we care about, we protect, we nurture, and we value. And when we connect, we nurture and value things, they grow and they thrive. When we disconnect, we stop protecting, we stop caring, we stop protecting, we stop nurturing, we stop valuing. And we've only got to look at the world today to see that the major problems that we're all facing is that we've disconnected from our nature. I'm trying to find ways to encourage people to reconnect with nature. And in some ways, we don't really need to reconnect. We are nature, but we've got amnesia. We've forgotten that. We don't realize that we are nature. We don't have to reconnect. We just have to allow ourselves to be that. But there are so many ways we're being told we're supposed to be living our lives and running our businesses that are just not natural. I like to run businesses like my garden runs. I look out, I don't see salespeople going around. I don't see the bees and the butterflies and the flowers trying to sell pollen to each other and reproduce themselves. I see them as pollinators. They're just naturally going about their everyday business, but in the process of going about their everyday business, they are spreading and they are growing. See, trees spread the seeds, and I've got leaves and seeds all in my garden at the moment, but everything's naturally coexisting together and things grow. Some seeds grow, some seeds don't. My ideas, my thoughts, Terry and I often talk about this. Our thoughts and our ideas and our actions are seeds. Some of them grow, some of them don't. When businesses don't grow and thrive, it's because there's disconnection there. So if we can find ways to connect, this is a great opportunity. We're connecting. I found during the lockdowns, it was very interesting because all of my corporate training work ended on the 20th of on March 2020. But I'd never been more busier because I took my work online. I'm in an office at the bottom of my garden. I look out at my wild pond, and I started training guides online to guide people out into nature. And loads of people were at home with an hour of exercise to do each day. And during that period of time, I trained over 500 people in 30 different countries to run natural mindfulness walks. I've now realized that natural mindfulness walks are a little bit too slow. I've also realized that I'm online too much. Thank you. I'm online too much. So I'm bringing everything back out into the natural world in Cheltenham now because I'm launching a new activity called Ruck Club, and I'll put the details in here in the chat for you. I think I've just done that now. Terry's involved in it because we're collaborating through the Human Business to launch Ruck Club. But Ruck Club is a low impact cardio workout plus a mindfulness-based calming the mind approach, but also with nature connection and all the new science that shows how being aligned with nature and using our senses to connect with nature is great for our well-being. So it's good for the body, it's good for the mind, and it's also good for the spirit. So it's a holistic approach to well-being. So looking after our nature is looking after our nature, so we're better placed to look after the natural world. There you go.